Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today, we are doing the shortest of our trade lessons here in Unit 2. Um, I know that doing this remotely is not ideal for anybody, but it's probably for the best. And I'm going to try to keep this really, really short and as informational as I can, which means, of course, that it's going to be highly concentrated. So don't do this one with another operation going on a different screen. You got to focus. All right, here we go. As the title probably clued you in, we're talking about the Indian Ocean and its trade goods. And I am not going to sit here and go through each of these items because our primary focus today is actually going to be on the cultural impact of this trade route. So, going and looking at this, we have the trade goods coming from, and this is just laid out more or less geographically from west to east, but trade, of course, because trade flowed all different directions. Um, we have the big four of East Africa are ivory from elephants and from um, rhinos in that particular area, gold, iron, as well as enslaved people. The other stuff on the list is important, but those are the four that you would mostly see being traded. The ivory, gold, and iron kind of went everywhere. The enslaved people were almost exclusively sent to the Middle East. We'll talk more about that when we get to that section of this lesson. Um, the Middle East itself provided frankincense, myrrh, perfumes, good smelling things, and if you want to add something to the list, sailors. They were where most of the people who were exploring and doing the trading along this route came from. Ethnic Arabs, of course, converts to Islam, so spreading out through that. In India, this is a historical trend that you probably do need to be aware of. India has always been a source of incredible wealth. Grains, most notably rice in this case. Cotton originates in India. When I say spices, I'm talking about stuff like saffron and other really exotic spices. Pepper, is a big one that's like black pepper or white pepper that you sprinkle on your food. It is not peppers like chili peppers; those are native to the Americas. Um, Timber, like exotic woods, and precious stones like rubies, sapphires, diamonds, emeralds, that sort of thing. So a really wealthy place in India. Southeast Asia, which is what you're writing about, the quiz that's in Canvas today. Southeast Asia is the source of tin, which is critical to make bronze, as well as nice smelling sandalwood and some delicious spices, cloves, nutmegs, mace. Cinnamon is also from this region, and that's on the map there. You can see that. Better erase that. That's a ragged line. There we go. Okay. China is home to its big three goods still: silk, porcelain, and tea. Those are going to be the three major trade goods of China all the way up to like 1900. So keeping that in mind. The rest of these are going to go a lot faster, so buckle up. Trade in the Indian Ocean spreads culture. Trade spreads culture all the time. You know that. I'm not going to dwell too much on it. We have new trade states that you're reading about today on the other half of your assignment in Southeast Asia. Srivijaya, Majapahit, Vijayanagara. Those are all going to be trade states. They're going to be just as based upon trade as our old friends Mali and Songhai in West Africa were. Through this trade, Hinduism originally and then Buddhism later make their way from India into Southeast Asia, where Buddhism specifically is still the majority religion today. We're going to see some of the architectural impact of that in just a second. Islam, meanwhile, arrived via trade with the Middle East, in Indonesia especially. There were Muslim colonies all along the coast of India, as well as Sri Lanka, as well as in Southeast Asia. But the real Muslim impact is going to be in Indonesia. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. In terms of religious buildings, two of the largest ones on the planet, the biggest Buddhist temple and the biggest religious complex of any sort, were both built in Southeast Asia. Borobudur, which you see on the left there, is in Indonesia, which is almost exclusively non-Buddhist now, but it still stands because it's an architectural marvel. Over on the left, you see Angkor Wat, which is just beautiful. It's in Cambodia. It started out as a Hindu temple. It's now Buddhist, and we're still doing scans like with laser and aerial scanning technology to see just how big this complex was. Because it's not just the stone buildings that are sticking up out of the jungle. There's a lot of really cool stuff in Angkor Wat. The two big things you need to be aware of here are wind patterns, that is monsoons, and the spread of Islam in India in the Indian Ocean. The monsoon winds are predictable wind patterns. We're going to focus on the Indian side of the map here, excuse me, the Indian Ocean slash African, East African coast side of the map, because that's where the monsoons produce the most notable impact. If you leave India in the winter, the monsoon winds will blow you to the East African coast, definitely. You almost don't have to navigate. It is really simple. Um, and predictable trade is safe trade, and safe trade is profitable trade. You need to know that. So I'll say it again. Predictable trade is safe trade, and safe trade is profitable trade. In the summer in East Africa, you leave, you're going to get blown to India. Again, with nowhere near as much effort needed. Not to say these weren't skillful sailors, they just didn't have to do as much as you did if you were, say, trying to cross the Atlantic or go around Africa, because the wind patterns just, they were there for you already. It was great. It was taking advantage of geography. Um, Muslim merchants came to control these trade routes. Again, Arabs had been traders for years in the pre-Islamic days, so when they converted to Islam, it just made natural sense that Islam was going to spread along these trade routes. Muslim merchant colonies are going to be established in India, in East Africa, but the big one, of course, will be in Indonesia. By 1400, there is a Muslim sultanate in Indonesia, specifically at Malacca, which is right where I just circled and then erased. And the Malacca Sultanate controls that natural choke point, which means they control a lot of this trade in the region, which of course makes them insanely wealthy. All right, last region we're looking at, told you this one was pretty short. In East Africa, the Indian Ocean trade routes are going to alter the lives of people in a lot of different ways. For one, Islam shows up. We see a very similar pattern to West Africa. The elites and the merchants convert, and then you have all these little city states, and then the population it filters down to. A little bit more orthodox than West Africa, but still some religious syncretism going on. Unfortunately, our written sources there aren't as good. Um, and then East Africa, we're going to, I meant to reorder these bullets. Go down to the last one real quick. We will come back to the third one. If you look right here, though, you'll notice one of the great syncretisms in East Africa is actually language. The Swahili, which I know I told you about this before, the Swahili language is actually a Bantu language, but written in Arabic script. It's really cool because it represents a merger of these two cultures. And if you're sitting here, well, that sounds weird, now's as good a time to tell you that you're speaking and reading a Germanic language that's written in the Latin alphabet. So languages do that sort of thing all the time. We just don't talk about it as much with English because it seems more natural. Um, East Africa is also the source of the first major race-based slave trade. Slavery and slave trading had been a thing for a long, long time, but most of the time slaves were the same race, as in skin color, melanin deficiency, or melanin abundancy, as their owners were. The Romans had millions of slaves, but they were also mostly people who would have appeared to be white. The Greeks practiced slavery. Slavery was common throughout Africa during this time period, but it was, again, Africans enslaving other Africans. This site where you begin to see large numbers of Africans being exported to a decidedly non-African location, that begins in East Africa. It will continue in East Africa for a long, long time, and it has some very odd and very unpleasant cultural legacies. You can find it in various literatures. You can find it in different illustrations. And just like in West Africa, like we talked about with the Trans-Saharan trade, a lot of these people, most of these people are being grabbed from the non-Islamic inland tribes and being sold because Muslims aren't supposed to sell other Muslims. Same thing we're going to see in West Africa when we see a lot of people who are going to be nabbed by Christian slavers because they're not practicing Christianity. The last piece here is about Great Zimbabwe, which we actually already talked about in our West Africa, or our African Empires lesson, excuse me. And as such, I don't have too much to add. If you don't remember that lesson, or if you need the refresher, this is where the gold came from that the people on the Swahili coast were then trading with their Arab partners. The Swahili themselves, like I said, did convert to Islam from the top down again, and a lot of their leadership began to claim Persian heritage or Arab heritage, even though they were of African descent. To try to make themselves seem more prestigious because, hey, yes, no, we're related to the same people you are. All right, now we close here with two really, really cool historical objects that I think you'll really enjoy just their backstories, and I'll do them as quickly as I can. Okay, so on the right, we have this little statuette called the Shanga lion. And the reason I'm including this is because we're actually going to be talking about this sort of stuff on open-ended questions. Not an essay yet. I got to teach y'all how to write those. But the Shanga lion is a great thing to use as a reference point if you're writing an open-ended question about the Indian Ocean trade, because yeah, it's small. You can see that, about 5 centimeters in length. It's kind of ugly, if we're being honest with ourselves. But here's the thing. It was made from bronze that had been in Chinese coins. And somebody in India said, we don't really need these. So they melted it down and they made a little lion statuette out of it. And that little lion statuette made its way to the east coast of Africa. We don't really know who brought it. Was it a Muslim trader? Was it somebody from the Swahili coast who wanted to bring back a toy or some decoration for one of his kids? We don't know that, but what we do know is we have a Chinese bronze, Indian made, African purchased sculpture that we found in the ruins of this little Swahili city-state. And that's really cool. And of course, if you needed evidence that trade goes both ways, here we have a giraffe that made its way to China in the 1300s. We'll talk more about Zheng He's giraffe when we look at Zheng He, who I have miswritten here. I meant to edit that too. We'll be talking about Zheng He later in this unit alongside the Ming Dynasty. But it is pretty cool that in an era where your average person lived and died in a 10-mile circle, we have a bronze statuette that's incredibly well traveled, and this giraffe, that poor thing was probably just eating leaves one day, and next thing you know, it winds up in China. Really cool stuff, really useful if you're looking for some examples for an open-ended question. I hope that was entertaining, and I hope it wasn't too long. Thank you guys for sticking with, and I will see you all at our live lesson on Monday.